Heads and tails of the Fair Housing Act and emotional support animals. The presenter will be Mollie Tinnin, who is the FEMA Disability Integration Specialist assigned to Louisiana. You can read the description for this session and her bio on the last page of the conference booklet, which is linked in the chat. Mollie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Alicia. Just going to share my screen real quick. All right. So I'm not going to share my video just to make sure there's enough bandwidth, just to conserve the bandwidth. So just again, the presentation is called Making Heads and Tails of Emotional Support Animals and the Fair Housing Act. Again, my name is Mollie Tinnin. There is a picture of me on the screen. I am a Native American Hispanic woman with shoulder-length black hair with black glasses. And in the picture, I am holding my emotional support animal, who is a blonde Chihuahua Terrier type dog. I don't have a good description of him. He's a little bit of everything rolled into one. I am the Disability Integration Specialist for FEMA assigned to Louisiana, certified ADA coordinator. I also have my executive certificate in home modification from the University of Southern California. I do identify as disabled, and again, my emotional support animal's name is Charles. All right, so why is this topic important? A recent study found that adults with disabilities report experiencing more mental distress than those without disabilities. We go through a lot more dealing with disability, from dealing with multiple doctors' offices, going through flare-ups, being stuck, feeling trapped at home as a result of symptoms, or maybe just anxiety that somebody will notice or look at your disability for a variety of different reasons. And emotional support animal is a great way to cope in a healthy way. Many rental properties prohibit pets or make it cost inhibitive to have a pet. And during disaster recovery, pets are at times surrendered or prevent people with disabilities from obtaining long-term housing unnecessarily. And there's already a shortage of housing. So having another obstacle like a pet that helps you cope with life shouldn't prevent you from finding housing. All right, so just a few definitions, since there are different types of animals. Service animal is a dog or miniature horse that performs a task directly related to an individual's disability. Some of those examples are directing blind persons or alerting deaf persons, guiding a wheelchair, alerting to an onset of a seizure, reminding a person to take medication or to calm a PTSD or anxiety attack. Under Title III of the ADA, which addresses public accommodations, there are two questions that a business owner are legally allowed to ask of a person with a service animal. They can ask whether the animal is a service animal and whether it performs a task directly related to your disability. They may not require documentation, such as proof that the certified service animal is certified, trained, or licensed as a service animal. So emotional support animals, there is no precise definition under ADA. It is any animal of any kind whose function is to provide support to its owner. It is not limited to dogs or miniature horses. On the right of my screen, there is a picture of an older white gentleman holding an alligator that says emotional support. So this is Wally. He is an emotional support alligator, and he resides with his owner in Pennsylvania. They do go on tour together. Wally is a rescue, very well behaved, does not bite. And this man even reports that he sleeps with Wally for comfort. These animals are not required to have any specific training, and they are not required to perform a task specifically related to the owner's disability. And then there are therapy dogs, which are trained to provide affection, comfort, and love to individuals, and they volunteer in settings such as hospitals, nursing homes, disaster shelters, schools, etc. All right, so service support versus emotional support. Emotional support animals generally do not qualify as service animals. Excuse me for 1 second. Okay, well, that's not going to stop. They do not qualify as service animals under ADA because they are not trained to perform a specific task related to the owner's disability. In places of public accommodation are not required to permit emotional support dogs on premises unless required by state law, which I'm so sorry for that. Louisiana law does not recognize ESAs for public access. All right, service animals and emotional support animals are not pets. So it's important to remember that the animals are needed to assist, support, or provide services for persons with disabilities, and they are not considered pets and therefore are not subject to certain conditions of pet ownership. That does not mean that Charles does not have a fun-filled doggy life. He has tons of toys, he has clothes, much to his dismay. He still plays in the yard. He still plays with other dogs. He still does all of the doggy things, but he has a purpose, and that is to provide support for me while I am doing my treatments and when I am having flare-ups and stuck at home, so that I don't feel isolated by my disability. All right, so what qualifies a pet as an ESA? ESAs can be used to assist with a variety of different conditions and disabilities. It's very widespread. Some of the primary ones are depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, personality disorders, bipolar disorder, phobias, anxiety, panic attacks, PTSD, physical disabilities, intellectual developmental disabilities. Again, it's a very broad spectrum, and there's not a limit on
Molly, we can't hear you. Just give us a moment. Molly, you there?
Yes.
We couldn't hear you.
Yes. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So what is a reasonable accommodation? It is a change to a rule or a policy that is necessary to provide an equal opportunity to use and enjoy a dwelling. So this covers tenants, homeowners, and prospective homeowners. It also covers family members and people with disabilities who are associated with the above. And this applies to dwellings or housing providers. So landlords, HOAs, homeless shelters, group homes, nursing homes, dorms, etc. There are a couple of exemptions to be aware of. And the first one is a subject property that has 1 to 4 units and one is owner occupied. And the second exemption is a rental if it's a single family home rented out without the assistance of a realtor. In addition, the owner of the home must not own more than 3 single family homes. So a single individual who owns an income property on the side of having their own home would not qualify as being needed to be held to Fair Housing Act. All right, so Service animals and emotional support animals, as we stated earlier, are not pets. So conditions of tenancy in areas may include a no pet policy, a payment of a pet deposit, pet rent, limitations on the number of animals in the unit, and prohibitions on individual animals based on size, weight, or breed. So like we said, the service animals and ESAs are not pets, so they are not subjected to those above conditions. All right, so once you have a service emotional support animal, how do you request an accommodation? Tenants can request an accommodation orally in writing. I suggest if you request it verbally that you follow it up in writing as well, summing up the conversation along with the date that you had it, just to maintain for your records, and just to retain all of these records just in case. When making a request, you should explain what type of accommodation you are requesting and the relationship between the requested accommodation and the disability. So in this case, the accommodation would be to have an emotional support animal, and how does the accommodation helps the animal, may assist you in enjoyment of daily life, maybe getting you out of the house. You have depression and you tend to want to stay in bed all day. Well, this animal is going to help get you up and going. All right, so what you need is an emotional support animal letter. It is a signed statement from a doctor, psychologist, social worker, or another medical professional. There are 3 components that must be included in the letter. That is a legal diagnosis from the provider issuing the letter. The letter does not need to reveal the diagnosis. It just needs to say that the tenant is being treated by that provider for a legally covered diagnosis. The statement from the provider recommending the ESA for the patient's treatment, and why the provider is recommending an ESA, such as it helps alleviate symptoms or necessary for helping the patient live a full life. All right, so here is one of my ESA letters, and required information on here, as you can see, is it is on my provider's letterhead. It's dated, it has the address, it has the contact information for the provider. I think my provider thought he was being really, really funny when he went into the details of why I need one. I was a little upset when I saw this, but he does detail that I have ulcerative colitis, and went on to explain some of the more unpleasant symptoms that I would rather, a landlord not know about, but it does meet the criteria of stating that I do have a covered, I am so sorry about that, a covered disability. And it says that I have mine, I need a emotional support animal for depression or anxiety due to the physical limitations, and that Charles is my support animal, and that they do not have to charge for the pet. All right. Just one other thing is scam alerts. There are plenty of online websites that have popped up that say that they will give you a letter that says that your dog is certified as ESA. Some of the scams you should look for is if the cost of the letter is under $100. It claims that you can skip the mental health screening. If they claim that once you pay, you can get an immediate download. And then if it claims that purchasing the letter will register you for your ESA, there is no actual ESA registry. If the company sells kits to make your ESA look more official, like a vest or an ID card, or it promises you can take your ESA anywhere, or that your ESA will always be able to travel or fly for free. So here on the left, this is an example of that. It says the ESA Registration of America. As you can see, I did go ahead and pay for it just to register Charles, just to see what it looked like. But my dashboard, it has a picture of Charles. It says his name, that is a handler, it gives him an ID number. And it did come with a really stupid looking ID card for him. That I still use it. I still have the ID card, but there is no actual registry. So just be aware, don't get scammed out there. Doctors are more than happy to have the conversation with you about an ESA and get those letters to you. It can even be a primary care doctor. So just be aware of the scams. In conclusion, having an emotional support animal is an absolutely great way to cope with the extra stress that comes with living with a chronic condition or disability, whether it's helping to get you out of the house, whether it helps you feel less isolated, whether watching them play with their toys just brings a smile to your face that you wouldn't otherwise have. It's an amazing coping skill. So again, my name is Mollie Tinnin, and I am your FEMA Disability Integration Specialist. Here's my contact information, and open up for questions if anyone has any.
Mollie, how long have you had Charles?
I have had Charles for 3 years. I got him during Hurricane Laura.
If you have any questions for Mollie, place them in the Q&A, please.
Okay, here's a question. Please explain the state federal law difference. You says Louisiana has no law, correct? What does that mean in a practical sense here in the law? Okay, so the federal law for fair housing is just your basics, but some states have more laws that are more that have less restrictions or allow the service animals in the different place. So so it would just have an expansion of rights for the animal. How do you go about acquiring a service dog? There are lots of nonprofits that have service dogs. You can search them online, make sure that you're looking for a reputable one. And then you can apply, and your medical doctor will give you, will help you through that process as well. And then you just get on a waiting list and you can get a dog. If your ESA service animal passes away, are you assigned another, or do you have to request? If your ESA passes away, you are able to get another one. There are no restrictions on where you get an ESA. So Charles is a rescue. And your letter doesn't have to be specific and say that the pet's name on it. So my letter does say that Charles is my ESA, but your letter does not have to specifically say a name, whereas I believe a service animal through their certification criteria does have a little bit more restrictions on that. So to be approved, your animal does not have to be trained as a support animal. For housing, no, it does not have to be trained at all. Emotional support animal is designed to provide comfort, which is why it's a great option, because you can pick an animal that you mesh with, and just keeps you company or keeps you happy, and doesn't need to be trained. Charles is very aware of my central line and does know to stay away from it. But other than that, he really isn't trained, and I really don't take him out in public because he's actually not very well behaved. So definitely does not have to be trained. Next one is, I have clinical depression, social anxiety, and borderline personality disorder. What does this qualify me for? Absolutely qualifies you to have an emotional support animal. Especially with social anxiety, I'm sure that's incredibly isolating. And having a dog could help you feel more confident going out, going for walks, or keep you company at home. Borderline personality disorder, again, I had a dog as a child, and my parents got it for the sole point is that I was very shy, I was very quiet, I struggled with just talking to people, and I would just talk to my pet for a long time, and looking back, that would have qualified as an ESA. If Louisiana has no law with respect to housing, do you know if there is a Louisiana public accommodation or access law? I don't know the whole answer to that. But I know that the public accommodation and access laws apply to ADA, which would be your service dogs out in public, but not for an emotional support animal. So Louisiana does fall under Fair Housing Act, which every state does, that does allow
Seems we've lost sound with Mollie. KJ, can you take down her PowerPoint while we wait for her to connect sound again? Okay, Mollie, can you hear us?
where did that Q&A? There's that Q&A. And so you don't have to get it from an agency. A lot of service animals are from agencies, but there are also ways that you can get a dog and train it yourself. You may have said this, but do you pay out of pocket for Charles's toys, food, and medical care? Yes, I do, because he's not a service animal. I am required to pay for his care, but not having to pay for pet rent, or not having to pay for pet rent or cost of putting a pet application in does save me a lot of money. What is FEMA's policy for ESAs versus pets in shelters? Well, so the service animals are allowed in shelters. I'm not sure that ESAs are right now, because FEMA is not the shelter providers. So in Louisiana, we have the state shelters, and then we have the Red Cross shelters. So starting this hurricane season, actually, Red Cross is co-sheltering shelter residents and pets. So your pet, unless it's a service animal, may not be right there with you, but it will be in the same facility with you, making it really easy to walk across the shelter, visit with your pet, spend time with them. In the state shelter, I believe it is still just service animals. But LDH does do a lot, not LDH, the Department of Agriculture in Louisiana does a great job with their sheltering and veterinarian care and everything. The last one is, I was told that a cat is not considered an ESA. There are absolutely no restrictions on what is considered an ESA. It can be any type of animal. I don't recommend the alligator, though. And that is it for the questions.
Thank you so much, Mollie, for this informative session. And also thank you for putting together 2 of our previous sessions during the conference. Although you weren't able to be with us, we certainly appreciate your leadership in coordinating those sessions. So thank you very much. And to everyone, on behalf of Governor John Bel Edwards and our entire staff, which I'll ask them to put on their camera if I'm kind of putting them on the spot, but our entire staff, Liam Doyle, I see him, KJ Henry, and Les Chevalier, and myself, we want to first thank all of the presenters who they all volunteered their time, talent, resources, and knowledge to make this conference phenomenal. And thanks to all the people and organizations who helped promote this conference. And thanks to all of you for attending and engaging in this important work of the disability community. And last, but certainly not least, we want to thank our interpreters who have kept up with all of our presenters and all the challenges. So thank you to Tammy and Nikki and Bianca. This concludes our conference. This is the last Go to Conference of this administration. We certainly hope that we have developed a model that future administrations take up and continue. And we wish you all a happy rest of the summer. Thank you.
Thanks to you too, Bambi. We love you and appreciate all and everything you do.